rights in a coalition base with all of the international community and not just one or two organizations, and with all of the local organizations, not just one or two of the organizations. And that, I believe, is the role of the World Federation, but also the role of the international community to provide intellectual capital and coordination where is absolutely necessary in order to be able to provide a better solution. To that end, we have acquired land south of Najaf to host the campsite, and we will be working upon building this campsite come October 2014, and we hope to have finished the proof of concept by January 2015 and hope to roll out the entire campsite over the next 24 months, which means anybody who can provide us with any sort of assistance to be able to do so in any capacity is more than welcome to speak to us, and we would be more than happy to indulge in a more lengthier conversation with regards to the details. However, it is a request of the World Federation to the Human Rights Council and to the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights to be able to look at the post-conflict transition of Iraq and to be able to focus upon the human rights of the victims of the current displaced crisis and the human rights of the victims of the people of Iraq, but more importantly to look at how can the process of repatriations begin and how to have a plan ready for when the conflict subsides so we can actually look to repatriate the IDPs back to their communities and rebuild those communities. To that end, I will conclude my remarks and hope to invite you all to engage with us for any further clarifications and questions.
Thank you very much, Abbas. So I'm going to open the floor for questions. What I will do to save on time is if we take 3 at a time, and if it's directed at a particular person on the panel, please do let me know. Yes.
Good morning. Thank you very much for giving me a chance to talk. I'm Dr. Abbas. I'm consultant community pediatrician, specialist in neurodisability in England, and work in Manchester area in Wigan. I have wealth of information about I'm Turkmen myself, Turkmen Shia, and originated actually, my mother is from Tus Hormatu and my father from Amerli. And I think everyone knows what happened in Amerli past 3 months. And we have been doing a lot of work behind the scene, I have to say, as a group of young people, as well as we worked with the Al'ain Foundation, trying to raise the fundraising and communicate back to their, it's not just the fundraising, it's awareness raising, as well as political push. We worked very hard actually with various lead from UK MPs as well as from Washington. We tried to highlight the suffering of the people, and specifically, as the Sheikh said, it took 75 days for Amerli to be under that struggle, for severe struggle with the 20,000 people under the siege for 75 days for the Western country to act, while for any suffering of any human being is not acceptable and is impeccable. However, the differences we saw when the Yazidi and the Christian, within 24-hour action was taken, and people noticed that suffering. And as I'm saying, I'm not disputing, everyone is entitled for help when they need it. Amerli suffered that long. It took 80 days for international community to come together to relieve that siege. Believe me, the siege is relieved. The suffering continues in Amerli because the villages around Amerli, 42 villages, were taken over by ISIL. So one of the villages the Sheikh probably mentioned, there are 4 documents, as I was asked actually from a group of, unfortunately, they're coming today, Save Turkmen, independent organization, mostly doctors, professionals, they just themselves, working very hard actually trying to, I advised them 2 years ago, collect your data, evidence. People, when you present things, they want evidence from you. So they asked me to translate 3 documents. This is one of the documents. I spent my Eid, I canceled my holiday to go away. I spent whole week translating this document. This was 100 pages from Arabic. This document was translated to Farsi, I think it's Turkish, as well as English, and the document is Arabic.
Dr. Ilham, sorry to interrupt you. Thank you so much for...
There are various, in this presentation, various cases actually suffering of Turkmen. And as Sheikh said, it's mainly Turkmen Shia, but however, I have to raise is not just Turkmen Shia, is the Turkmen in general being targeted in this mayhem, I have to say. I have plenty of things I could work with the organization, as well as in the past 10 years, I tried with various Iraqi institutes from universities, medical schools, try to extend hand and try to help with the, as my specialty itself is pediatric neurodisability, and I have master in neurodisability and my own work leading in my area with this work. The intense outcome and the difficulties for these children suffering from these atrocities is impeccable, I have to say. I will give you just one example and shut up.
Sorry, Dr. Ilham, I just want to take a few more questions, if that's okay.
One
but I
thing
will
is my-
ask the panel
my
to address
question,
the very important point you raised.
Yeah.
If I have some time at the end, I will come back to you.
I will just one question.
Okay,
I'm
yes,
posing
yes,
it
please
about
go
the displaced families. Are we looking for these displaced families to stay longer term? Because I will be concerned. These families need to go. We have to work with the international organization and with the Iraqi government. These families need to go back to their own home. Probably, yes, in next 3-4 months, but they need to go back to their homeland. They shouldn't be derooted like that and accept the fact whoever has done this to them, yes, we accept it, and that's fine. We will generate another place for them. That's not the root solution for the problem they faced and facing. We are not going to solve that problem in this way. I am part of the organization of the Yazidi and Christian. They have their news letters comes to me every single day. Yesterday, I had an email from them telling 75% of Yazidi back to their homes with this appropriate support. Why not to the Turkmen to have that support and to have back to their lands?
So this is a very important point, and I'm going to ask the panel to address it as soon as I take 2 more questions. If anyone else has a question, please raise your hand. No questions? Yusuf.
I mean, there is obviously a gap in the development work between the people in the south and the people in the north. And I think part of the reason may be because some people view this as a sectarian thing when it comes to the Shia, and part of the problem because so much of the effort they feel that there is a religious leadership which may be helping. But the reality on the ground is there are lots of people as people are suffering because they are Shia. And I wish that the organization like the Sheikhs can coordinate more with the international developmental organizations so there is some kind of a sort of cooperation in terms of what is missing and what they can do. And I wish the work of the World Federation every success so that can bring this gap, that can narrow it a bit more. I seriously do.
Thank you very much for that point. So I think there are 2 important points there. Let's start with Shabra, and I'm going to move along the panel. Both of those points, the key things about Turkmen and the gap between North and South, and what you think can be done to address that.
Thank you, Fatima. I think it's a very critical point about long-term displacement and returning back. And I think our strategies, which Abbas has mentioned, is that long-term we expect people to go back to their homelands. We expect people to go back because we do not want to have the same mistakes that were made in the north side of Kenya and stuff. So that is our aim as much as anything else. However, critically, there is a dire need just now for housing, sanitation, and education until the conflict subsides or it becomes safer for people to go back. What you don't want to do is to move them back straight in, 1, without support, 2, without the ability of going through some counseling or work so that they become more productive, because they have moved away from a very traumatic homeland and you want to return them when they are ready to go back. People have to go through their process of mourning and through their process of acceptance of what has happened before they can go back to become effective members of society. Our aim has always been that, to ensure that people go back. However, before they go back, that is where we come in, to say we need to provide the support, we need to provide housing, water, sanitation. Critically, we need to provide education and support for these people. They may have housing, they may have food, but if they are not settled in their own psychology, it will not take us anywhere. It will create more such conflicts as opposed to creating a long-term solution. What Said Yusuf has said is also critical, and I think that is, we are hoping this is a start where we have been able to bring an organization like Al-Ain to this forum to say, look, there is a lot of work that is going on, there is a huge gap, and this is now the opportunity for everybody to get together to say, how can we work collectively? This isn't a matter of who is going to be first and who is doing that. We are in the world of collaborative working to ensure, one, the suffering is highlighted, it is brought to the UN's attention, something is done. That is one element. We've got experts in that field who do that. You said Yusuf is extremely critical in doing that work. We've got people who do very well in aid development. We bring those people in so that it becomes a collective work, joined up thinking, joined up success is what we believe in. Otherwise, we will end up fractioned and no work will happen. The North-South divide is critical. Hence, the reason we have done this purely to highlight the issues that is happening in the South and the need for aid to happen in the South as much as it is happening up North. We don't want anybody to suffer, but at the same time, we don't want an imbalanced position when aid is being dropped on one part of the country and not the other part. And that is far greater of importance. And the biggest advantage we have in down south is that we have local organizations. It's just that they have not been tapped. And we are hoping that through the work we have done, that this is brought to light and the organizations that can work together.
Okay. Perhaps Sheikh could enlighten us with some of his thoughts on both of those questions, please.
السلام عليكم. أختي العزيزة، كلامك في شأن التركمان. لنكن عمليين وواقعيين. لا يمكن إعادة الشيعة التركمان الموجودين في المناطق الوسطى والجنوبية إلى مناطق سكناهم خلال ال6 أشهر القادمة، لأن العداء الذي يواجهونه من قبل المجاميع المسلحة والتي كانت في السابق متفرقة وغير واضحة المعالم أصبح لها الآن شكل واضح وعلني وتؤسس لنفسها لمدة طويلة في داخل تلك المناطق. لا يمكن في هذه الفترة القريبة، فلا بد من حل لإعانتهم. هذا ما حبيت أن أعلق.
شكرا
Sorry, Dr. Ilham, I'm just going to ask Abbas to
one
come back
point
on
to
this.
comment on.
I'll come back to you. I will
yeah.
come back to you. So if you could just comment briefly and then.
Yes. I would like to stress that this solution is a short, medium-term solution that is central to it is the tenet of repatriation. We have to repatriate. However, I fully agree with the words of the Sheikh. At the moment, the conflict rages on. The society in the north isn't ready to accept the Shia Turkmani. Furthermore than that, those areas are extremely unsafe. We have to ensure that we rebuild those areas. We provide a safe environment for them to return, and then we return those people. We also have to ensure that the north of Iraq is stable for the displaced people to return back. And at the moment, the assessments being made with the people, more and more people being displaced from the north, it is very unstable, and I highly doubt, and while I'm not making a prediction, the point I'm trying to make is that these things will take time, which therefore requires a short and medium-term solution, and therefore that's what we're trying to provide here right now. With regards to your point about Amarli, you're absolutely right. It took a while to highlight that particular case. However, it is not productive to compare one situation to another and make tenuous claims of correlation. I personally would suggest that each and every situation is very different, And of course, while we agree that there may be reasonings for why one may have come about over the other, it is hard to make that assessment, and it is hard to concretely say it is for this or that reason. Therefore, we believe that it is the responsibility of organizations in the international community to highlight all suffering of all kinds.
Thank you very much. I completely agree with both of you. I am not in dispute the need of the intense and immense need of the families at this moment. My point is, I'm saying is there is a political Iraqi government should be proactively working with other forces on the ground as well as international communities to make sure these families will go back. And I'm looking to the Sayyid because it took actually when Sayyid Sistani issued the fatwa about, it wasn't fatwa, about the Amarli and the support they needed from the Iraqi government. The first thing is one of the American journalists, he told me, he emailed me actually, we cannot ignore this, this support from Sayyid Sistani. We have to do something about it. We have to bring that to the attention of our government and to President Obama. That was the email was sent to me after the Sayyid. So Sayyid has role actually and in advising the government, Iraqi government, to put, I wouldn't say pressure as such, which is this responsibility of Iraqi government to make sure human rights is equally, whether it's Kurd, whether it's Arab, whether it's Turkmen, whether it's Yazidi, has every single member of Iraq living in that land has a right to that particular right of living in sovereignty, having access to education and their own land as well. So my point is there are other solutions as well. It's not just the humanitarian and World Federation working on the ground with this family. I'm looking for a long-term solution for, you're talking about Tel Afar, you're talking about more than 300,000 people. I mean, it's impossible task for an organization to do that. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
I'm just, I mean, I can understand the sister's stress. I mean, she's a doctor herself, and she is tormented by what has happened to the Turkmen. And this is really sad to see somebody who is going to treat tormented people herself becoming quite tormented. And I really understand this, and I almost want to cry to see this happening. But I do believe we have only very 4 more minutes. Let's use this time to get to hear some of the people who are here to see what they think of the situation.
Well, if anyone else has a question, please raise your hand or comment very briefly. We can address that. Okay. If not, then I'm just going to ask the panel for some closing comments on what you think the way forward is.
Thank you, Fatima. My only closing comment is the only way forward is collaborative working, and we've got to work on medium to long-term solutions, but critically at the moment we need to provide support to local NGOs and work with local NGOs to provide intellectual capital that is what I call abundantly available in the West. If we provide intellectual capital, everything else will flow to make the solution even easier for the Iraqi community. At the same time, it has to be a multitude of solutions to get to the cause that we need to reach.
Abbas, very briefly, and then I'm going to ask the Sheikh to give the very last comments.
And I'll echo what Shaba said, but I would like to add that critically, while the long-term solution is required from the international community and the Iraqi government, it is also vital to provide the short and medium-term requirements in the campsites and to collaborate in able to do so.
And Sheikh, if you could just give us your final comments on what you think the future holds.
في الحقيقة احنا نتمنى أن تتاح فرص أخرى لكي نستطيع أن نمد أيدي التعاون مع جميع المنظمات التي تساهم معنا في صنع السلام في داخل بلداننا وحماية الأطفال بالخصوص. وشكرا.
Thank you very much. Now, before you go, a couple of announcements. First of all, the reports that have been discussed today are available, so come and see us for those. Shuaib, who is just over here, will be handing out business cards of the Sheikh So if you'd like to get into contact with him and learn more about the work that he's been doing, you can do that. And lastly, if you're interested in any of the work that's been mentioned today, we can take your contact details for further communication, and please speak to Abbas about this. So I'd like to thank our panel, especially the respected Sheikh, for his comments. I'd like to thank the audience and the interpreter who's been working very hard to keep up with our fast pace of speech today. Thank you very much.